Hey guys, welcome to the channel and welcome to another video. If you're checking in from YouTube, guys, give me a thumbs up to make sure that you can hear me. Just a quick mic check real quick. Today's video is going to be about the fact that my tenant owed 2 months of rent, and then this is what happened. I'm going to give you guys the truth about being a landlord, a property manager, or a property owner who rents out property. So if give me a thumbs up if you're on Facebook or YouTube, guys. Let me know that you can hear me and you can hear me okay. If you are interested or thinking about buying rental property, or you're thinking about maybe renting out your property, this is going to be the video that you want to watch, because I'm probably won't go too deep, but I'm going to dig into being a landlord and what it's like being in real estate. I've been a landlord for 23 years. Since the year 2000. So, sometimes on this channel here on YouTube, Smart Money Bro on YouTube, I have a whole bunch of videos about real estate. I don't do a lot of videos about real estate anymore, but every now and then I want to keep you guys kind of updated on what's going on. And we got right now a empty rental house. So I said, well, let's talk about it live on YouTube. Let's talk about it with our community here on YouTube. And let's just have the conversation about being a landlord, because on the channel of Smart Money Bro, we talk about building wealth. We talk about making money, investing our money. We talk about places to invest our money and how to grow our money. And real estate is a very, very excellent place to grow your money or to invest in an appreciating asset like real estate. So every now and then we have these conversations. We'll talk about index funds and stock market and all that good stuff, but we'll also talk about real estate, because I've been in the real estate game for a long time, and I want to share the knowledge and information that I've accumulated over those years with you guys. And so today's video, if you're thinking about real estate, you want to get into real estate, you want to rent your own property, you're thinking about doing it, this is the video for you. You're going to want to watch this, because I'm going to let you in on some secrets and tell you some things that a lot of property managers and property owners will not. They would charge you, $500, $2,000 for a workshop about the information I'm going to give you on this video. So thank you for letting me know you can hear me, guys. Let me know what city you're in, what city, state, country that you're in or right here on YouTube. If you guys can leave that in the comments or in the chat for me, I'd appreciate it. And then we're going to do some Q&A as well. If you're thinking about getting into real estate, need some questions answered about how to handle a tenant, how not to handle a tenant, what to do, what not to do, how long for this, how long for that, we'll have a conversation about it after I explain to you what happened with this tenant that I don't have anymore, right? So thank you for the thumbs up, John. Good to see you, guy. John Dixon and John High, Tracy. Thank you for the thumbs up. Appreciate it, guys. Salute to you too. Jay, good morning to you. Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas is checking in. Boynton Beach, Florida. Again, I like saying Boynton. Salute. Good to have you. So yeah, this is the video for you if you want to talk about real estate. We can have this conversations. I'm also parked live on LinkedIn, and I'm also streaming live on Facebook. I'm also streaming live in another couple of places, Twitter or something like that. But if you have a question, let me know. Let's have this conversation, guys. You get to pick the brain of a landlord who's been doing it for 23 years. So you might as well throw some questions at me, and let me see if I can answer them for you, give you some insight. Good. Okay, looks like Raleigh, North Carolina is here. Great. Houston's in the house. Chicago, West Side, South Side, North Side. Tampa, Florida. Asheville, North Carolina is here as well. Good to have you. Charlotte. Right, former home of the Bobcats. Well, I think they're the Hornets now, but yeah, good to have you here. So let's talk about, guys. My tenant owed 2 months rent, and then this happened, right? By the way, smash the like button for me, guys. Smash the like button and share this link. If you know of somebody else who wants to get into real estate, get into rental property, share this link with them so they can get this realistic, down-to-earth conversation about being a landlord, about being a property manager or a property owner who rents out property. I don't care if it's Airbnb. Airbnb is a little different, right? But it's all renting out property, right? And this will be a good information, good talk for folks who's interested in that. Looks like Island Eric, the realtor, 20 years as a property manager. Fantastic. I got some support in the house who can help me answer some questions, and also can corroborate what I'm saying, right? Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, good to have you as well. Glad you're here. So let me just give you a little bit of background. Oh, by the way, and just to reiterate, it's good to have yourself diversified when you're investing money, right? You don't want to be, you could be. It's not going to hurt you if you're all in stocks, right? You're all in index funds or all in individual, whatever. It's not going to kill you, but it's best to have a little diversification. So I have, we do money in the stock market, index funds, all that good stuff, our TSP or whatever 401k at our job. But it's also not a bad idea to have a little bit of real estate as well, right? Because when, a lot of times you kind of hedge against things when you have real estate as well as just being in the stock market. But just to give you a little background, guys, the property that we're talking about here, this property was owned, it was actually, I won't say gifted, but it was handed over when I got married 23 years ago, 20 some odd years ago. The property was a property that was owned by my mother-in-law, and we assumed the loan. I'm not sure if assumption loans are out there anymore, but assumption loans used to be out there. And what they were was you could just take over the loan. They didn't check your credit, didn't check your background or anything. You could just take over a loan. So in 2000, we took over this loan, and we actually lived in a house. I lived in this house that I'm talking about for 5 years. Okay, and then I started renting it out in 2005. So I have a long background, a long history with this property. And in 2005, I started to rent out the property. And so, of course, I've done all kind of repairs. I put on a couple of roofs on the house over the last 20 plus years. New air conditioner, new furnace, carpet throughout, floors throughout, whatever it may be. Done a lot of work on the house over the years, right? And then, since 2005, now I've been a landlord since about 2000, but I've actually been a landlord in this property that we're talking about since 2005. So I've owned the property for a long time, but needless to say, I had a tenant. Let me just give you the story, guys, of what recently happened, and then we can get into some Q&A and start talking about it and really, really dig in what it's like to be a landlord. So I had this property. I rented this property out to a young lady. Okay. And so she moved in about 6 months ago. Took her through all the screening process. The screening process, background checks, credit checks, rent history checks, all that good stuff. And, felt good about the tenant. House had been empty for a couple of months because I really wanted to get a good tenant in there, right? I was really pressing to get a good, solid tenant in the property because I wanted to hold out. Sometimes as a landlord, when you're doing your property management, and you're looking for a tenant, you can rent to the first available person that comes along, right? But you got to really do your background checks because let me put a pin in this real quick. Let me put a little pin in this because this is something you guys got to know. If you ever want to own rental property, hear me closely. I'm going to make a statement right here you may have never heard. Okay? Yeah, I still brush my beard. I'm going to make a statement here that you probably have never heard that you need to hear, that if you're considering buying rental property or renting out property, you need to know this. This is like gold right here. I'm about to drop on you. Listen, the most important thing that you will ever do as a landlord or a property owner who rents out property, the absolute number one, there's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. The absolute number one thing that you will ever do as a landlord is to screen tenants and put a tenant in your property. Choosing the right tenant is the most important thing you're ever going to do as a landlord, ever. I don't care what the carpet looks like. I don't care what the walls look like. I don't care how new and how safe and wonderful the windows are. I don't care what type of alarm system you got on there. Light fixtures are all beautiful. Floor is all nice and pretty. It's gorgeous in there. The outside is beautiful. All that. None of that matters. Zero. None of that matters if you have the wrong tenant in the property. If you don't get anything else from this whole conversation I'm having with you today, get that one point. The absolute most important thing that you're going to ever do is put the right tenant in the property. Because if you put the wrong tenant in the property, nothing else matters, right? It's like breathing, right? The right tenant is just like breathing. If you ain't breathing, ain't nothing else you're doing out here mattering. Same thing with a rental house. If you put the wrong tenant in there, it's done. That's key. Very important. Just want to put a pin in that, because that right there is going to save you. If you get your tenant screening process down to it's never going to be foolproof, right? You're always going to make mistakes because you just can't judge people. When people come to rent your property, they are showing their best selves when they're coming to rent your property. They feel like they're going to an interview. Okay, if you do things in person. I'm still old school, so I do a few things in person. I do have some things automated, right? But I do a lot of stuff in person because I never want to lose the intuition piece that comes with people and human interaction, right? I can have you fill out everything online and you can look really good on paper, but then I see you in person and I get a feel for you and I talk to you in person and things don't click right. So I like to use intuition as well as just what you look like on paper. Well, yeah, you got a credit score. I know that. Yeah, you got a background check. Yeah, you got a rental history. Yeah, you've been on your job so long. That looks all good and dandy on paper. I need to see you in person before I put you in the property. I'm old school like that. So you got to make sure you put the right person in the property. Screening the tenant is the absolute number one thing you do. Again, if you don't get anything else from this live, take that with you. It's very important. So anyway, I did all my background checks. I thought I was on the ball, right? I did a good job with it, man. Excuse me. Everything was rolling. So, by the way, names and some of this has been changed around because I'm giving you an actual story here. All right. So this is fresh. So, like right now, my cleaning guy is over at the house doing the first cleaning right now as we speak. He might end up giving me a call. So we'll see what happens. But so some of the names and things have been changed around, obviously. So ultimately everything worked out. Tenant looked good on paper. Tenant looked good in person. Boom. In terms of, when I say look good, I'm not saying the person looked good physically. I'm saying I felt good about the interaction between me and the person. And here's another kicker I always do. Before I put anybody in a property, I have to meet and see everybody that's going to be in the property. Okay. I've got to meet the kids. I've got to meet the grandmother. I got to meet and you might be saying, why are you doing all that? Well, because I only have a couple of properties, guys. I don't have 150 properties. If you got 45 properties, it may be a little different, right? Than the way I handle my property. So I just like to see the people that's going in the property. Like to see what I'm looking at, meet the people, have a conversation, etc. So anyway, long story short, the lady moved in the property, couple of children. 3 children, I think, young teens, moved in the property, met all the kids. One of the kids was a little bit squirrely when I met the kid. I remember the kids was running around in the empty property, just, a little squirrely. I always keep my eye on those type of things too. But she moved in and all was well. First couple of months of paying rent, she was a day or two late. In other words, rent's due on a certain date. She came in, good communication, communicating as always. I apologize. Okay, we're going to have the rent. No problem. She had a hard time paying the first few months' rent. Now, she had a job. Everything worked out on paper, but for some reason, she was a little bit late paying her rent. She only stayed in the property 6 months. I'm giving you the story of how my tenant owed 2 months of rent. And then this happened, okay? Giving you the real deal of a real landlord, right? Not an institutional, not a person that owns 1,000 doors. I own just a few doors, right? So she paid her rent late a couple times, paid the late fees, right? Paid the late fee. Everything was rolling, no problem at all, right? And then came November, didn't pay. Now, I tried to work with her. We communicated back and forth. I tried to work with her. November came, no rent. Now listen, single mom, I'm a product of, after I was about 9 or 10, 11 years old, I was a product of a single parent, right? Single mom. My mother had 5 children, single mom. So I have a soft spot. Let me just say that as a landlord or property owner, I have a soft spot because I want to help, especially a single mom, right? Who's struggling or who may have to raise a couple of kids and, et cetera. I have a soft spot. That's where I come from. Every landlord is not some hardcore, beat them down. You didn't pay, get out of my house, I'm evicting you, right? There's a lot of landlords, guys, that, care about their tenants to an extent, right? They care about it. Of course, it's a business. We know it's a business. But there's a lot of landlords that they try to help. I'm a landlord that tries to help because, hey, it's Christmas. It's November where you're coming up on Thanksgiving and Christmas. I'm not trying to evict anybody on December 1st, December 31st, right? I could, but I said, okay, let me work with this tenant because she's trying. She also has paid back rent those few times that she was late. Sometimes there was a couple of times she paid right on time, right? There's about three months of the 6 that was about 2 months of the 6 she paid earlier right on time. A couple of months she was late, but I tried to work with her. I said, okay, I'm going to work with you. She said, hey, I got this coming, that coming, and we're going to get you paid, boom, boom, boom. So we communicated. Now we get into December. Right? And you might say, wow, he hasn't filed for it. Usually what happens, guys, is about 10 days late of paying rent, I communicate with my tenant, and if there's necessary or need to go ahead and file for eviction, I will file for eviction. If we have a communication and we've talked, if you're a renter out there, guys, one of the most important things you can do as a renter is to communicate with your property owner, your property management company, or with your landlord, whatever you call it, right? Communicate. So I had communication with the young lady. And so we communicated back and forth, and I said, okay, let's see what happens. Let's give it a couple of weeks and see what happens based on what she mentioned and said. Lo and behold, December comes around. No payment. No. Now it's been about a week or so. No communication. I reached out. Here's what happened. I reached out and said, "Hey, let's have a conversation, see where you are, etc." The next day, I got a text from the tenant, and the tenant said, roughly, I'm paraphrasing here. The tenant said, I had to move last week, and I had to hurry up and move to Michigan. That's what happened. The tenant, who now into December was 2 months behind, they said, we moved to Michigan. I was struggling right there in the city where I was, and so I had to move to Michigan. Oh, let me back up. One thing I didn't tell you guys about the whole story was that every time before winter happens, I like to have my furnace guy go out to my rental properties, do a double check, make sure the furnace is ready to go, burners are cleaned, filters is up there and clean and everything's. So I had my furnace guy go over to the house roughly 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe a month ago. Had my furnace guy go over. He told me that the gas was off. So I knew, this is one of the reasons I said I have a soft spot because I'm trying to help her. Her utilities were, her gas was off. So she wasn't getting any heat or hot water. So her gas wasn't on. So that told me, okay, yeah, she's struggling. Let me work with her and so forth. So he told me the gas was off. So that's another thing. When you're a landlord, you're a property owner, second little bonus tip here, do a little bit of preventive maintenance ahead of time. Okay. Do a few things for your tenant. If it's something like, okay, let me get somebody over there to take a look at the plumbing just to do a double check, or let me do an inspection of the house every 6 months, right? But just be checking on your properties. Don't just set your properties and forget your properties. I've made that mistake before too, right? But as a landlord, the real deal with being a landlord is that, sometimes you're going to have tenants that you want to work with because they Either they have a compelling story or they have a compelling circumstance. Everybody's situation's different. And you got to think about that as a landlord, right? Now, there's some instances where it's very cut and dry, very hardcore, boom, boom, boom. In this instance, it wasn't for me. I went ahead and tried to work with her. She bailed out on me, moved about 4 states north of where I am, right? and she said she got an intern. She had just graduated from college when she moved into the property. And she said she had an internship up in Michigan. They hired her, and she took the internship and had to go to Michigan. And she sent that text like a day after I texted her. But I was trying to work with her, right? I'd been working with her, trying, working on the back rent, etc. Because again, she was late a couple of times, not too much late, a couple of days late, but paid the late fees. And then she was actually on time a couple of times too. But hey, that's what happened, guys. This is the life of a landlord. This is landlord life right here, right? Every landlord or property manager or property, person that owns a piece of property, they're not some big corporation that owns a whole, everybody's not like that. There's a lot of small time, individual landlords and property managers, property owners that are still around and still negotiating and managing and so forth. A lot of times landlords get a bad rep. They really do. They get a bad rep a lot of times. And you guys that are not landlords, you have to understand that landlords have to put up with a lot. Landlords have to go through a lot. Landlords have to go through a lot of stuff. They have to deal with a lot of information, a lot of stuff, mess from people who bail out, who don't pay, who hem and haw, who leave in the middle of the night, right? I've had that happen probably two or three times over the years, right? Well, maybe more than that. People that just up and leave. I remember one time I had a lady, was it a lady or man? I had somebody leave a property and the back door was off the hinges and it was set to the side and the property was just wide open. Just left it wide open, right? For days on end until I went around there and found it. But the point is that landlords put up with a lot. If you want to be a landlord, you want to be a property owner, you got to be prepared for dealing with these situations. Being a landlord is not for everybody. Now, some people know that, but it's not for everybody. Guys, do me a favor. Let's have a conversation. Put a Q in the chat. I'm going to run down the chat and see if I missed a few chats, guys. Put a Q and let's have a conversation about being a landlord. If you're a landlord in the chat, let me know. How many doors do you own? We could have, listen, story after story. I've probably had over the years, I owned 6 properties for a lot of years, but I probably had over 130 or 40 different tenants over the years. 130 or 40. I counted it one time about 10 years ago. It was a little over 100. So I probably had a little more than 130 or 40 or so. I've gone through a lot of tenants over the years, guys. And every time I have a tenant like I just had who bails out on me or something like that, I always try to look introspectively about what did I do or did I not do during the tenant the screening process. How can I get my screening process better so this doesn't happen again? Now, granted, it's going to happen because you never can be perfect with how you screen, right? It's going to happen. So how can I get better, though? How can my process of screening tenants improve? What can I do? I don't throw my hands up and say, all tenants are horrible. Or, all tenants are, I'm tired of tenants. I hate tenants. I don't do that, right? I try to look at what I can do better next time. What did I not do right this time in terms of screening tenants? And it might not be anything. I might have done everything great, but I just had bad luck with a bad tenant. Excuse me. So the point is, guys, that's what happened. My tenant owed me November. They owed me December. They bailed out. Now, you might be saying, what's next, right? Could I go after the money? Could I sue the tenant? Probably. More than likely. Sure. I could do that, right? We could find her, right? I could get an attorney on it. I don't have to do an attorney, but I like to use an attorney if I'm doing evictions or going after money or suit. But in this instance, I probably won't, right? In this instance, no need. Move on. See, it's better as a landlord. For me, it's better to have an empty rental that I can then hurry up and re-rent, right? Go through the whole process and re-rent. It's better to have an empty rental than to pay fool with paying the legal fees of trying to go after $1,500 or $2,000, right? That's in this instance, this is how I'm gonna handle this. And now there's been times when I went after it, right? But in this instance, I'm not. I'm gonna move on as quick as possible. So I went in the house. I put a short on YouTube about my first entry into the house. Went into the property, did a quick assessment. She cleared everything out of the property except for a couple of small things, maybe 2 trash bags worth of stuff. And they were like Christmas stuff or something. So she pretty much got everything out the house. It wasn't a huge cleanup job. Although, like I said, I got my guy over there cleaning right now. I like to do 2 cleanings, by the way. I like to clean initially when the tenant gets out. Then I like to come in. Well, first I do a few repairs. Did a few repairs yesterday. A few repairs on the property. Clean the property so we can get around in it. All right, and it's not, filthy. And then after we clean the property, then we go through and look at some interior paint. We're going to repaint. And then after we repaint, we're going to come back through and probably do one more cleaning after that, right? One more simpler, quicker cleaning. So a couple of cleanings, and then we'll go through with this property and we will assess the carpet, clean the carpet. If it doesn't clean well, we'll go ahead and replace carpet. The house isn't bad. It's not in bad shape at all. So, and the carpets aren't in terrible shape, right? But we'll see. The floors are always last, right? So we kind of work ourselves down, right? Repairs, interior, anything that needs to be done, interior paint, and then we work ourselves down. So the floors are the last thing we work on. So that's where we are right now. Right now, I got a guy over there doing my first cleaning, and early next week, we'll get in there and do our interior paint, and then we'll come back. Then I'm going to replace a couple of doors, exterior doors, but I don't want to replace exterior doors until my paint guy has been in and out of the property, right? So then we'll go ahead and replace a few things. So that's kind of the plans. We'll get it rolling. I've got a budget. Here's how I clean up, guys, so you know. Tenant leaves. I do a walkthrough and I do a budget. And I write it out on paper, right? I do a budget about what we're going to do to get this property up and ready to rock and roll and ready to go again. And so I want to get that process started as quick as possible. Right now is one of the hardest times to actually rent property. You're talking about December. You're talking about around Christmas time, January. Not a great time to be renting out property. So it may take a month or 2 before this property actually gets a new tenant in there. But one way or the other, we're rolling on it. We're getting it ready. Matter of fact, this weekend, before it's even close to being done, right, I'm going to start advertising. I'm going to start marketing the property, putting it out there, getting the feelers out there, putting it on a few websites to get out there. So, get my application uploaded. I'm going to get the ball rolling, right, before it's even ready. That's another tip. You don't have to wait till the property's ready to go before you get the ball rolling about the property, right? Now, that's what I do. Everybody does it a little different, but I don't mind walking a tenant through a property that we're working on, right? Not every tenant is going to look at that and say, "Oh man, that doesn't look right. That doesn't look right." But once I start explaining all the things that we're doing to the property, oftentimes tenants are like, "Oh yeah, I like that. Yeah, boom, boom, boom." Now, the final touch might be appliances, right? Very end. I don't put appliances in my properties until I actually get the tenant and we're ready to rock and roll. Then we go ahead and plug in appliances into the property. So that's kind of the plans, guys. That's what we're going. That's what we're doing. Let me see what you guys got. I'm going to run over here to the chat. Let's see here. Boom, boom, boom. There's a guy on YouTube that said tenant poured cement all down drains and caused $40,000 worth of drain damage. Yeah, tenants, man, if I could tell you some of the things that tenants do. It's not pretty, man. It's not pretty at all. It takes a lot of work. That's why it takes a lot of patience to be a landlord. Toe Guy said, do you rent to younger tenants? Yeah, I do. I rent to all folks. I don't, when you're a landlord, disclosure, disclaimer, whatever you want to call it here, you cannot discriminate based on certain factors, right? And so you got to be careful that you avoid those factors of discrimination. So you got to follow those. Okay, you don't want to discriminate when it comes to who you put in your property. So I have rented to younger folks. I rent it to older folks. Let me give you guys this information. Young folks tear up property. Old folks tear up property. Okay, people that make a lot of money tear up property. People that don't make a lot of money tear up property. Right? I think I saw something about Section 8. Some of my best tenants have been Section 8 tenants. Some of my absolute best tenants I've ever had in the worst part of town have been my best tenants. Some of them have gone on to home ownership, which is what I like to try to help tenants do. Or when I see tenants are on Section 8 or they're struggling, I try to talk about home ownership with them, about maybe getting your own property and owning a piece of property. That's pretty important. I think that's important to do. I've done that. I've had a number of tenants that gone on to home ownership, which is awesome. So yeah, I rent to all types of tenants. It doesn't matter, white, black, old, young, male, female. I don't really look at those type of things, to be honest with you. I would explain it like this: you have a series of questions that a tenant must meet. If they don't meet all the criteria, they're out. Yeah, you're right. You can't. You got to be kind of cut and dry. When you're screening tenants, okay, you got to be careful about getting emotional and nothing. But oftentimes, I will have somebody else come with me when I meet a tenant, because what happens is when somebody comes with you, they get a different feel for a person that you may not have gotten, or you may not have seen, or you may not have noticed. Right? My intuition ain't all that, right? Some people have a different intuition. So sometimes I need help with that. I used to bring my kids along with that sometimes. Hey, what do you think about that person? Boom, boom, boom. They tell me what they think, etc. Somebody says, screen by doing a 2-minute in-home visit. I've recently dodged bullets by adding this final step before approving a new tenant. Tracy, that's pretty interesting. Do a home visit to their current home. Now, of course, when they fill out the application, if you want to drive by their current home, that's always a thing to do. But I don't think I would want to go in their current home to visit them. That's pretty interesting, Tracy. That's an interesting tip, though. I appreciate you throwing that out there. Somebody said, never rent to someone who doesn't have a steady job and been there for a while. Of course, that's one of the criteria. That's another thing, guys. When you become a landlord or property manager, property owner, and you rent out property, you need to come up with your own set of criteria that you rent property by. Your own set of criteria that's a part of your tenant screening process. Make sure that criteria doesn't violate any laws, right? But you want to make sure that you have your set of criteria that you're going to be renting your property out based on, right? And that criteria might be something that you could use in a court of law, right? If you have to, right? But you want to manage your property like a business. Okay, that's very important. Think of it as a business. Don't think of it as I'm just a landlord, right? Don't think of being a landlord. Let me tell you guys like this. I was a tenant. I wasn't a landlord till I was 30 years old. So all of my life, and I never owned a piece of property until I was 30 years old. All of my life, I was a tenant. I was a tenant as a child, living in apartments and all this, you name it. I was a tenant as a teenager. I was a tenant as a 22-year-old. I was a tenant as a 26-year-old. I live in apartments at 29 years old. So I understand this thing from a tenant standpoint. I was a tenant longer in my life than I was a landlord, much longer. So I understand this thing from a tenant standpoint. And, every tenant's a little bit different. Everybody has a different situation, all different types of things going on. And I like to consider some of those things when I'm actually screening tenants. I don't want to just look at them on paper and that's it. They got to pass the paper test. But then for me, they got to pass the meeting test of when we actually meet and go over the lease and all that good stuff as well. But a job is part of that criteria, having steady employment. Now, there's a lot of stuff going on in the news right now, guys, where, for example, in the city I live in, sources of income. They want to remove that from the landlord's ability to rent to or not rent to a person. And there's a lot of things going on around the country, America right now, that's taking some of the rights from landlords to make choices on who they put in their property. So these are all things that wherever you are and wherever you own your property, you need to be aware of what's going on. What are the local landlord and tenant laws? What are the things on the books right now in your city, right, or your state that are going to hurt landlords from being able to make certain decisions about who they rent to and who they don't rent to, right? Some people are saying that if you judge a person and you say they can't move into your property because of the source of their income, then you're being you're discriminating against that person. Now, I don't see it that way. From a landlord standpoint, I have to make these decisions about who. Again, that is the most important decision I'm going to make, is who I put in the property. So if that's the most important decision I'm going to make about who I put in the property, then I need to be able to have some wiggle room and have some things at my beck and call that I can use to make that decision. But they want to take that decision away from a lot of landlords around the country in different cities, right? And so that's something to think about. You got to know all those types of things. So let's see here. Oh, by the way, guys, smash the like button. Smash the like button. Please share this video with somebody you know who may be interested in the real estate, in getting into real estate in terms of tenants and renting out property or Airbnbs or whatever it may be. All of these things really apply to a lot of different situations, right? They can apply to, now commercials a little different, but there's some of this stuff will apply. Apartment complexes, duplexes, triplexes, whatever, single family homes, etc. Somebody said, don't trust tenants who work for themselves, like fixing cars for a living. Yeah, you will get a lot of that when you're screening tenants, right? Well, I do a little work for myself. Yeah, you got to be careful, because when people work for themselves, oftentimes their source of their income is not steady, right? So that's one of the red flags. I did a video here on YouTube about 10 red flags when screening tenants. If you go to my playlist, guys, on this channel, you'll see I got 100, probably 90 or 100 videos on real estate on this channel. Let's see here. Let's see. There's a guy on YouTube who rented to someone who worked for himself doing some kind of business. It turned out he was growing an illegal plant in the garage. Yeah, that happens too. I've had people, doing drugs, selling drugs all throughout my properties. I've had that happen before and didn't know it, right? So yeah, appreciate Tab, Nebraska. Yeah, KC. Let's see here. Tracy, what has been your experience with Section 8? John, let me jump in on Section 8. Like I said before, I like Section 8. One of the reasons I like Section 8 is because Section 8, you don't have to chase rent oftentimes when you do Section 8. Yeah, there's other ways you don't have to chase rent also. But Section 8 is pretty much, you get your money gets direct deposited, no issue. Right? No issue. Again, some of my best tenants have been Section 8 tenants. Right? I know Section 8 gets a bad rap. Section 8 gets a bad rap. Oh, they're going to tear your house up. Yeah, they will tear your house up, some of them. But there's a lot of people that ain't on Section 8 that's going to tear your house up too. I guarantee you. They can be working right at the nice job, making $30 an hour. They'll tear your house up too. And there's no way you can really tell who's going to tear your house up and who won't tear it up. Because how you see people this is one thing I learned about being a landlord. How you see people every day on the outside has very little to do with what's going on the inside of their house. And I know the conventional wisdom is, oh, well, he takes good care of himself. He looks really well. He carries himself well. That don't mean his bathroom is clean. That don't mean that he ain't put a hole in 2 walls because he was angry. That don't mean that he don't have roaches all running in the house. Just because he looked good on the outside has very little to do with what's going on, how he lives on the inside. I know people say, well, yeah, it does. And trust me, 23 years. Not necessarily. Right? Not necessarily. How people live behind closed doors will shock you. If you've been doing this long enough, you understand what I'm saying. right? So you can't tell necessarily by what you see on the outside. I've had great experience with Section 8 tenants. Great experience. I've had some bad experiences, but I don't chalk up the good and bad of Section 8 tenants to all Section 8 tenants of being bad, right? I don't chalk it up that way because I've had some really good tenants that took care of the property, etc. Even when they had no skin in the game and they were only paying $25 a month for their rent. So I have no problem with Section 8. You just got to make sure if you take care of your properties well, then you pass all Section 8 inspections with no problem. You just got to take care of your property, right? I think Section 8 holding you accountable for taking care of your property is good. The last thing we need out here is more slumlords who don't take care of their property. So Section 8, whatever your local jurisdiction is, if they hold you accountable for doing certain things, that's a good thing to me. As a landlord, that's a good thing. Because it means I'm going to get in there and take care of what I got to do to make sure the property is up to par for the tenant. I just don't want to hand over any old type of property, right? But you got to get a landlord who cares about that. I did a whole video on every tenant should be screening their landlord just like a landlord screens you. See, just because you're a tenant, you don't have to accept the first thing that comes available to you. You need to look at landlords and say, okay, let me choose which landlord I like to work with. Let me go online, do some reviews. Let me see if there's anything negative about this landlord. Let me check the local records. Let me see what this landlord, do a little research on your landlord, right? I did a whole video about helping tenants say, hey, what do you got to do to make sure you got a good landlord and you don't have a slumlord, right? So anyway, we have an 80-year-old blind tenant paying $500 a month. We don't want to raise his rent. He has limited funds. That's cool, Island Eric. Nothing wrong with that. I have a tenant in my other property who pays on time. I've raised their rent $50 in about 4 or 5 years, $50, and they still pay near the same rate they were paying back in 2018, 2019, because they pay every single month. There's no issue at all. They take good care of the property, and when I have a tenant that takes good care of the property, I try to do my best to take care of that tenant. Let me give you another bonus tip as a landlord. I'm throwing a lot at you guys, but that's okay. As a landlord, one of the things I do is every single time we renew the lease, and the tenant has paid on time with no issues, no problem. Every time I renew a lease year over year, I always give a tenant some money off. I take money off that first month's rent. $50, $100, $200. I just take some rent off, just to help the tenant out, right? That's just another little perk, right? As a landlord, it's easy to separate yourself from other landlords. It's easy. Just do little things like taking $100 off the rent. If you're a landlord and $100 off the rent is going to hurt you financially, then you got bigger problems. For me, $100 off the rent, it's just a nice gesture to my tenant to say, I appreciate you as a tenant. Thank you for being here. Thank you for paying on time. This is how I'm going to take care of you. Here's $150 off your rent if we renew for another year. That's it. That's just a nice gesture, right? Another nice gesture you can do is every time they call you for repairs, be on it. Give yourself 24 hours to get on the repair as quick as possible. Don't wait around. Don't hem and haw. Get on it as soon as possible. Anyway, okay, have them meet you and look at their car. Messy car means that what your rental will look like. Not all the time. Not all the time. I cannot say that. Clean car, clean rental. Elvis, if that's been your experience, I respect it. It hasn't necessarily been my experience, right? It's hard to get in there and inspect somebody's car, right? They might have a lot of stuff in the car. Maybe they're helping somebody move and you just don't know they're helping somebody move, right? Guys, let me know if I'm breaking up or something, if you can still hear me. All right, new sub. Thank you for subbing, guys. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing to the channel. Let's see here. Never rent with someone with bad credit. Bad credit is tough, right? Yes, guys, please smash the like button for me. Let's see something here. Make sure we're plugged in good. All right. Let's see here. If you don't raise rent, I'm just reading here, guys. Don't rent to people with pets. I'm not a big pet person. If I rent to a person with pets, they will have to pay a little extra deposit. That's for sure. And I'm a guy that I've had a pig in my property before, right? I broke down and let somebody with a pig. I checked all my laws, went through all my landlord tenant laws in my city, all of the planning and zoning, all that good stuff. That's another story for another video. I would love to share that with you. Let's see here. I'm way behind in the comments, guys. Bear with me here. Let's see here. Appreciate it. Glad to have you here. Just looking at a few questions, guys, about landlording and owning property and renting property out. Landlord is a tough business, right? It's a tough business. Let's see here. Question: what type of account do you recommend I keep my rental property emergency fund in? Regular savings account. It's an emergency fund that you're trying to get to quickly. Regular savings account will work just fine. If you want to do a high yield savings account, that's fine. Good question, though. Yeah, REITs. Some people like REITs. 41 Doors, Sharif. Good. Glad to have you here. Island. Question: I manage 42 rentals by myself. Have done it for 20 years, growing the business. Island. Eric. 42 rentals by yourself. Yeah, that means that's your full-time job, because that's a rough way to go, man. But that's great. Congratulations to you. I'm a landlord, but I would prefer not to give number of units. Fantastic, Tracy. If they're in a hurry to move in, it's a red flag. Yeah. If they're in a hurry to move in, that's an issue, right? In a hurry to move in means, wait, what's wrong? What's going on? Or they have a big wad of cash and they say, well, hey man, I got $5,000 for the first 6 months rent. Be careful with that, right? Got to turn a lot of people down that oftentimes do that. In-home visit is my most useful tool in addition to prior landlord references. In-home visit, Tracy, I'm going to look at that. I'm going to do some research on that. I like that. I think it's an interesting idea. Let's see. Yes, so many crazy stories. Yeah, Island Eric, I should have you on here as a guest and interview you. Because that would be interesting for folks to learn a little more about being a landlord. I will be a first-time landlord in February, so I'm listening. Route 7, first-time landlord in February. Go back and check out these 90 videos that I have on this channel. That will give you an education on how to manage your rental properties. I guarantee you. That will give you a really good education. I have a great video about what things to make sure you include in a lease. Right? Things you got to have, clauses and so forth. And if you're not a landlord already, guys, consider it, right? Landlord is cool. You don't have to manage the properties yourself. You can get a property manager. But you got to kind of manage those property managers sometimes too, because property management companies, a lot of them come and go, right? To be honest with you. Question: is it better to work with a management company rather than doing the management yourself? I think I just answered that one. Management company is going to charge you a percentage of the rents you collect. So just keep that in mind. How many tenants have you taken legal action against? Over my experience, I think I've maybe evicted 10 people, 10 tenants over the years, roughly 9, 10, maybe 8, 9, 10, something like that. And so typically, I try to work with them. I try to communicate with them. That's my last resort. It's not my first resort. It's my last resort after communicating and so forth. Now I had several houses that have been trashed, and I did not. And one I did sue, one I didn't sue. Do I interact directly with my tenants solely, or does a loved one or management company interact? I do all the interaction with my tenants because I manage my own properties. Am I ever concerned about my safety? My mother is concerned about my safety because she reads all the news stories and stuff like that. I'm always carrying. So if somebody approaches me, I'm carrying with several clips. So just being honest with you, keeping it real with you, right? So I feel okay if I'm visiting a property or I'm visiting a property at night. I know how to protect. I won't say I know how, because you can be ambushed, right? Anything can happen. But I'm always looking out, very careful, and always take proper precautions to make sure that if something goes wrong, I can make sure I can handle myself as best as possible. So yeah, you can. If you're a person that's renting out property in areas that you don't feel safe in, that's something to think about. Maybe you need to go there in the daytime. Maybe you need to have a property management company, right? But I feel pretty safe where I'm going. Let's see here. Good morning. I've been through this with my property. Yes, it can be tough when somebody skips out and doesn't pay rent on you, right? Because I still owe a mortgage on this property. Let's see here. Boom, boom, boom. Let me try something, guys. Let me know. Let me know if you get a little lag in my video. Okay, let me know if you get a little lag in my video right now. Now, when I say lag, I mean it's like the video is a little bit choppy. Let me know that, guys, in the comments below if the video is choppy. Audio might be good, but the video might be choppy. Let me know. But yeah, landlording is a business, guys. Somebody, I think I saw earlier about an LLC in the chat. I have my properties in a couple of different LLCs. Very important, guys. That's what I like to do. You don't have to if you only have a few properties, but it's something to consider, right? LLC is for protection in case you get sued. Let's see here. I'm going back through them. Okay. See, Tampa, Orlando, Sarasota is where Island Eric has a lot of his. Fantastic. John High. It's a stock that pays. Okay. Yeah, this is what the internet's all about. This is what YouTube is all about. Offering information to help each other, right? Question, not because we have been on time, should a landlord call and say, my wife and I are going to Hawaii? I know you always pay before the first. Can you pay before? Yeah, you can well, check with your lease. Here's the kicker. Always look at your lease. Look what your lease says, right? Helping people makes me feel good. I have plenty of knowledge with agenda. Good, Island. Thanks, Island, for helping out and answer a few questions in the chat. I appreciate that. We had it all ready, so we blushed, tell it, boom, boom. HUD. Okay, let's see. Question, do you use trust in LLCs? I think I just answered that one, right? I use an LLC for each property, right? I try not to put all my properties in one LLC, an LLC for each property. And also, yeah, don't discriminate. Somebody said don't discriminate. Question, is paying a company a management fee to avoid hassles around screening, collecting rent a good idea? Sony, yes, it's a good idea. If you don't want to, now this is what I always tell people. Another bonus. Always, I think, for new landlords, always manage your own property for at least a year first before you get a property management company off the bat. Why do I say that? Why do I say manage your own property for at least a year? Because you want to kind of understand what to look for when you go out and get a management company. If you've never owned property and you immediately hire a property management company, what are they supposed to do for you? You don't really know that if you've never done it yourself. So I suggest, just a suggestion, just my opinion, that you manage the property yourself for a minute before you go get a management company, because then you'll know exactly what to look for and what to expect out of that management company, right? That's just so you have a base of knowledge on how to do this thing and on what it takes, right? What does a window cost? What does a new door cost? What does it take to run some electrical wiring onto another, to create another outlet and a light fixture, right? What does it take? Right? Property management, if you just hand it all over to them, they're going to be doing everything and you don't really know anything. So to get to know some things, I would do it myself for the first year. If you're not comfortable after that, let a property management company do it and accept their fees. And you need to interview property management companies. Just don't take the first one. Every property management company is not the same, right? It's not the same. They can all be different. They can all charge different percentages. They can all have different responsibilities. They can all have different reviews on the internet, right? So, yeah, you don't want to discriminate based on any of the factors that you're not supposed to discriminate against. The federal law, right? Don't want to break federal law at all. Let's see here. They want to stop landlords from screening bad. Yeah, they want to put a lot of places around the country, a lot of cities around the country, cities, municipalities. They want to tie landlords' hands behind their back and say, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do this. But that's why as a landlord, we just need to make sure that we're responsible landlords and we are fair, right? And we don't discriminate based on anything, right? That's why we don't want to discriminate. Let's see here. Thank you for smashing that like button, Corey. I really appreciate it. If you haven't smashed it, please smash it for me. But this was I want to talk about this because there's a lot of folks that want to get into real estate. There's a lot of folks that don't have they can't ask a question to a live person or people in a chat that can answer real estate questions. And real estate is a great way. And I know that, interest rates have gone up from a year or two ago. They've actually gone back down now. But I don't think it's ever a bad time to buy real estate if you're going to buy and hold for the long haul. Let's see here. ICE showed up at my tenant's house and arrested them one time for fraud. Interesting. Wow. Rent to a family with kids in school. They won't want to move for years. Yeah, that happens, but it depends. Some people are used to moving a lot. There's tenants that move a lot. They're very transient. Guys, by the time I was 30 years old, I think I lived in 22 different places. I lived in 22 different places. It wasn't, I was in school a lot of that time, right? By the time I was 30 years old, I lived in 22 different places. But I moved a lot. My mother just moved a lot, right? She moved a lot. And it wasn't for any necessarily bad reason or anything. She just moved a lot. So some people just move a lot, kids or no kids, right? Let's see. Section 8 also does some screening of the tenants, right? Tenants want to avoid losing that Section 8 voucher. So a lot of times they do behave when they're on Section 8, more so than you would imagine. Some landlords, somebody said some landlords are bad, just like tenants. Absolutely. 100% correct. There are a lot of bad landlords out here, guys, a lot. And that's why if you want to be a landlord and you want to do some things to retain good tenants, just do a few little extra things. Some of the things I mentioned on this live, right? Doing a 6-month inspection, doing this. Hey guys, how about walking through? How about putting in your lease? I did this a few times. Putting in your lease that you're going to clean the property twice a year. Put it in the lease that you're going to hire somebody to come in and clean the property twice a year. That may cost you $600-700 to do. But guess what? You pay for that service. Tenant sees you doing that and say, wow, they're paying for somebody to clean my property twice a year. So it gives the tenant the idea that you care about your property, right? You're taking good care of your property. You care about how they maintain the property. It also gives you a reason to get into the property and see how the tenant is maintaining the property throughout the course of a year, right? Just another little tip, something to do for tenants, right? So let's see here. Our version of Section 8 in North Carolina does constant inspections. And if the tenant doesn't show, or purposely breaks something by stuffing it around for inspection, then the landlord is at fault. Okay. That's important. So they do inspections on Section 8. Question, have you ever had to deal with a hoarder? Yes. Let me give you what happened to one of my tenants one time. I'll give you a quick story. I had a tenant. She had 3 boys, 3 teenage boys, 14, 16, 18 type ages. One of her kids was shot and killed while she was living in my property. She became a hoarder after that incident, right? That incident happened, and then she moved out 3 or 4 or 5 months later. And when I went back in the property, it was probably my worst cleanup job ever. I think that one cost me close to $20,000 to get that house back together. But she became a hoarder after that incident. Before that incident, she was okay, took care of the property here and there, not too bad. But after that, I saw the property. Just when we went in there, I can't even describe it. I'm not even going to describe it. I might get kicked off YouTube for describing how bad that property was when we went in there. If you watch the show Hoarders, it was like that. It was terrible. I mean, terrible. My cleaning guy didn't even want to go in there. It was bad. But I think she kind of had a mental breakdown after her son passed away in the property. But yeah, she sort of became a hoarder, and it was really, really rough when I went in that property. So But we got a ton of stories like that. I got to run, but good. Thanks, Tracy, for being here. I appreciate your input. And guys, smash that like button. Never again for Section 8 North Carolina. I understand, Corey. Let's see here. I posted a few videos of completely destroyed properties that we remodel. Island Eric, the realtor. Go over and check out his YouTube channel. Island Eric, E-R-I-K, the realtor. Do you want to see some? Yeah, I bet there's some rough places. Let's see here. After COVID and the way the government treated owners during that, I would never go. Now, during COVID, the government said, tenants, you don't have to pay. Right? Now, landlords, if you had mortgages, typically you could stop your payments with the mortgage companies as well during that whole pandemic issue. Let's see here. Thanksgiving and Christmas, I gift cards for groceries. That's pretty nice. I like that. Tech Teach Off 99 said, Thanksgiving and Christmas, I gift cards to my tenants for groceries. I like that. That's a nice touch, right? Instead of taking money off rent, you give them $100 to Walmart, $100 to Target, wherever they go. I like that. That's a good idea. Excellent. I appreciate you putting that in here. Tip, don't rent to people who try to pressure you to move in immediately. Yeah, we said that already. Let's see here. Landlord alive. Landlord, let's see, A, lives in the basement, one family on floor. Pet renters pay more. Absolutely. Yep. In-home visit. I'm going to be looking at that, Leon. In-home visit. You got 15 doors here. My wife and I manage them. It's also our full-time jobs. Excellent. Congratulations to you, Leon Leslie. Listen, this is how nice being a landlord and owning property can be. If you get enough properties, guys, you could manage your properties full-time and make that your job. Right? You don't have to do the extra work and go to punch a clock or whatever you want to call it. Make that your full-time job. Right? Let's see here. Thank you so much for letting me know that there's some lag, but I think it might be my whole connection, right? Audio's fine, video slightly choppy, but not bad. Okay, thanks so much for letting me know that. We use a management company, said Corey. Once our kids give us a breather, we plan to manage. Okay, fantastic. Let's see, burn through several management companies. Yes, management companies can be tough, right? Because like I said, they come and go. They're not created equal. Thank you, Crazy Lurie, for being here. Appreciate you here. Yeah, just trying to share as much knowledge as I can, guys. Make sure you share this video. Share the link with somebody. The best way you can support the channel is by sharing the link. I also put a link down in the description box of Mint Mobile. I use Mint Mobile. The channel is all about saving money. I use Mint Mobile now. Love them. Excellent. Drop calls, none, right? They use the largest 5G network, and they don't have stores. They don't have salespeople, and you can pretty much get Mint Mobile. I'm dropping it, but you can get Mint Mobile for a very, very nice discounted price. So check out that in the description box below. Also up in the description box, I put my 24 laws of money free. 24 principles of money that help me grow my wealth, help me get to where I am right now in terms of financially, right? But another piece to what helped me was rental properties, right? Right now, a little bit less than half my portfolio is in rental properties, right? And I don't have many rental properties. So I'm glad you're here. Thank you, Crazy, for being here. Just trying to help as many people as we can. I talk to so many people that want to get into real estate, and they get discouraged, or they hear some things, or they go to some workshop, and a lot of pie in the sky. It ain't all pie in the sky when it comes to being a landlord and managing your properties, right? You got to know the realistic parts of it as well, not just the stuff that you see on IG and a quick post about how you can own apartment buildings and it's no big deal. You know, apartment buildings are more intense when it comes to management. Now, full disclosure, I may get into, I'm considering, the back of my brain, I'm considering some multifamilies, okay? I'm considering some multifamilies, all right? John said, what are my thoughts on long distance landlording? I would say no, no, and no. For me, I don't want to be a long distance landlord, right? Some people are okay with it, right? Maybe, your family's in Nashville, and there's a possibility of a multifamily in Nashville, and you want to get into that, and you got a good relationship with somebody in Nashville, or you feel comfortable with it, you go there all the time. That's cool if that's what you want to do. There's nothing wrong with it at all. But for me, That's not really what I want to do right now. I'd rather manage my properties locally. So that's just me right now. I wish people didn't think landlords are bad. Yeah, but most single family homes are owned by regular landlords who have 20 and 30 properties, or have 10 properties, maybe have 5 properties or 50 properties. Most single families in America are not owned by corporations or ginormous institutions, right? There's a lot of small time, like myself and some folks here in the chat, landlords that really want to help people and really want to do a good job, right? But, you know, again, as a tenant, though, I want to just caution you as a tenant. I like to caution tenants and say, you know, make sure you look at your landlord and how they manage their properties, you know, because all landlords are not the same. We get too many landlords in this business who don't take care of properties, right? A lot of times, let me just give you this. When you see a property that's not taken care of on the outside, gutters are hanging and all that stuff, it's typically not because the landlord doesn't care. It's typically because you probably got a landlord who doesn't have very much money. See, landlords are just like tenants, right? In a lot of ways. Sometimes landlords don't have money to fix stuff. And so they let the property go down because they just don't have the money, right? They're not taking care of the properties properly, but some of it's because they just don't have the funds. If you want to be a property manager or a landlord and you want to be good at it, make sure you have some cash. Don't go into being a landlord broke. I did that. I was guilty of that years ago. Try to have some money so you can be a landlord that takes care of the property, right? Very important, guys. Smash the like button. I appreciate it, Mark. Thank you so much. Okay, and also, if you just check it in, guys, rewind this thing to the beginning. How did you find my first tenant in 2005? Good question, John. Actually, my first tenant was in 2000, the year 2000. Man, I should show you guys a picture of my first house. I think I put that somewhere on one of the social media I think on my Facebook group, I put a picture of my very first property. My very first property I purchased, and it was in 2000, and it was a property that I purchased from a motivated seller, and the seller financed it. And so since the seller financed it, I paid the seller, but the seller, here was the kicker with the house came with a squatter. The very first property I bought, there was a squatter in the property who had no utilities. They weren't paying no rent. They were just squatting in the basement. It was a big dude. A big dude. I don't mean big this way. I mean just muscular. Big old 6'3", 6'4", squatting in the property. He was homeless. And so I had to work with him to get him out of there, right? And I was brand new. I didn't know what I was doing. The year was 2000. I was a 30-year-old guy, never even owned a home. Because in the year 2000, I got 2 properties. The one I told you about, where my tenant just left me dry, didn't pay rent for 2 months. And I bought another property in the year 2000. Myron's in Atlanta. What do you dislike the most about being a landlord? One of the things I dislike the most about being a landlord, man, that's a good question. What do I dislike the most about being a landlord? Man, I dislike when a tenant moves out and I got to go in there and we got to get the property ready to go. I don't like that part. I don't like that part because, you know, I just don't like that part. I like tenants to stick around for 5 and 10 years, which I've had a few of those, right? I just don't like the cleanup part. Maybe that's what it is, right? Because for a lot of years, I did all the cleaning up myself. Right now, I have, you know, people that come in and clean up for me, no big deal. I did it a lot myself for many years. And so I didn't like that part. What are good apps to collect rent? I don't use any apps. There's apps that are out there, though, guys. I do want to impress upon you that there are apps out there. And I don't use apps. Rent Ready and stuff like that. Turbo Tenant, right? Those apps are out there. And that's okay. Nothing wrong. If you want to use apps, that's cool. Apps are okay. Right? I'm an old school person. I don't use apps, right? But I've heard good things about some of them, but I've heard bad stories about some of them too. Here's another thing I want to point to you guys, a bonus. Make sure that when you become a landlord, if you're thinking about becoming a landlord, join your local landlord association or join the local landlord association. Please, whatever you do, Join the local landlord association. Why? Knowledge, information, networking. You're going to meet new people. Sometimes you'll have a conversation with somebody at a meeting, and next thing you know, that person wants to sell 10 properties, and they're looking for somebody to sell. They don't want to advertise it. Boom. You gain so much information when you join the local landlord association, because you now meet a network of brand new people who are like-minded, just like you. Investors, they have access to things that you don't have access as a landlord. You meet new people, right? You get new information from these new people. Listen, I've been doing this 23 years. I've never talked to somebody personally that does in-home visits of potential tenants. But in this chat right here, I just ran into 2 people who do in-home visits before they rent to somebody. I'm 23 years in the game. That's brand new information for me. Listen, you only know what you know. When you go and you meet new people that do what you do, you learn new things, and you learn new laws, new regulations that's coming up in your area. So please, again, you're becoming a landlord like it's a business. And if it's a business, then you got to treat it as such. If you're a cardiologist, you don't just become a cardiologist and not continually learn the new things that's happening in the field of cardiology, right? It doesn't matter what you're in. If you are a custodian, you should be learning the new things that's coming out in your field of knowledge that can help you be a better custodian. Same thing applies for being a landlord or a property manager, property owner. You got to know the new laws, the new regulations, the new possibilities that are coming out that you can use and employ in your line of business. And you get that when you join a local landlord association. So I want you guys to kind of understand that, treat it like a business. Don't treat it, when you treat it like it's just a hobby or side hustle, side gig, no big deal, something you're doing on the side, then the results will show, right? The results will show. Let's see. Agreed. Being a landlord can be stressful. It's not all that it's cracked up to be. If you're a landlord and you plan to manage your own properties, you have to have that one-on-one. You have to be willing to have tough conversations. You got to be willing to talk to. I had to be willing to go in and have a conversation with my tenant who lost their son while they were in my property, but they still owed rent. Do you know how tough a conversation that is? That's a hard conversation to have with a mother who lost her teenage son, but she still has to pay rent. Think about that for a second. If you want to be a landlord and you want to manage your own properties, you may have to have those type of conversations. And if you can't have those conversations, or you don't want to have those conversations, maybe being a landlord is not for you. Maybe you need to have a property manager do everything for you, right? Thank you, Toe Guy, so much for that. Yes, smash the like button for me. If you're coming in here late, guys, I need you to hit that like button, because we want to get this information about landlording, the truth about being a landlord. Not the flash, not the quick 2-minute or 1 minute Facebook advertisement, right? Not the, you're going to be rich one day if you just buy these 5 properties. And no, I want to tell you the truth about being a landlord. It's not as easy as you may think it is. Now, it's very doable, right? It's very doable, but you just got to be willing to understand the real, right? Checking in from East Texas. Good to have you. Smash the like, but yes. Yeah. So Ernest, feel free to reach out to me. Let me know what you're going through. Guys, I do one-on-ones with folks. Matter of fact, if you join this channel at the advanced level, you have a free you have a $25 or whatever the cost is, $24 conversation with me, 15 to 30 minutes every single month, so we can go over your own personal situation. Or you can do a one-on-one with me. That information's in the description box as well. I understand. I'm a person that talks money, but I understand this one thing. One size fits all is not always a good thing when it comes to money or even real estate, right? Right? Sometimes everybody has their own personal situation, their own personal things going on, problems, issues, etc. And that's why I do one-on-ones with folks to help them. No, I don't sell a course. I don't have a course. I don't have a weekend getaway where you can trail me and we have this big boot camp that you got to pay $20,000 for to ride in my jet. Right? No, I don't do all that. Right? I just try to help people on a one-on-one basis. So in terms of auto collected rent, you can do bank, get their bank information and take it automatically from their bank if you want. Right? I've done that before. That works. You can go old school. You have to do what's best for you and what you're comfortable with. Or you can do, Zelle or Cash App, whatever you may feel comfortable collecting rent. Right? That's one of the things that I discuss with my tenant up front before, as we sign the lease, right? We discuss these things about how we're going to pay, etc. Because there's so many different ways nowadays. I try to make a lot of different ways available to pay rent. As opposed to, I don't take cash, I don't take checks, handwritten checks, right? But there's a lot of other ways to collect rent. You got to do what's comfortable between you and the tenant. You may, in your qualifications, you may say, hey, these are the two ways we collect rent. You can do that too, right? It's all a matter of how you want to actually collect. Maria, glad to have you here. Rewind this thing to the beginning so you can get all this great information. Let's see here. There's a guy on YouTube. Elvis said there's a guy on YouTube who makes a slim profit from each of his rental. He owns 200 plus rentals because he owns a trailer park. Then he bought a laundromat for a good price. Now, I am not a person that says get 200 rentals and make $50 each on each rental. No. Instead of having 20 properties where you make $100 each on 20 properties, what's that? $2,000 a month. I'd rather have 2 paid for rentals that I make $1,000 a month because that's 18 less headaches, right? For me personally, because I manage my own properties. Let's see, cut down trees by your home. Yes. Taking care of the outside of the home is very important. Roots, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Let's see here. My bonus son bought a townhouse in 2020 for $50K. He still doesn't have a tenant. What? Okay, in the property. And squatters moved in 2022. We think he should sell the property because he refused to take action. Yeah, why have a piece of property? That's messing up the neighborhood. Right? He's doing other people a disservice by not putting somebody in the property. Either rent the property or sell the property, right? But don't just keep a property sitting around an abandoned property where people move in and don't do something with the property. That's the type of landlord that we don't want, right? We don't want to have that type of landlord. So yeah, I would tell your bonus son, sell the property or, do something with the property, help the neighborhood out a little bit, right? Question, how do I remove squatters? That's a tough situation, Elvis. I like to communicate with people. I'm a pretty good communicator, so I try to communicate with people and give them ultimatums. You know what? One thing I did one time years ago, guys, I paid somebody to move out of my property. I think I paid them $100 to move out of $150 to move out of the property. They took it, they left, boom. Didn't have to go through eviction, nothing else. Cost me $150, no big deal. I'm a different type of landlord, right? I don't do things all conventionally and so forth. I like to kind of switch things up. But you got to do whatever you got to do. You got to figure out what it takes. You also need to know the laws, the eviction laws and so forth in your area. What's it take to remove somebody, right? And get that sheriff out there. Do I have an estate plan for my rentals? Of course you had to have an estate plan, John. Absolutely. So I do have an overall plan that includes rental property within that. Absolutely. But not an estate plan for each one. No. Let's see here. Best advice I received from a seasoned landlord prior to me jumping in the water. Buy 2 or 3 multi-units as an owner occupancy before you buy the house. Yeah, that's always a good idea. Buy a duplex, live on one side, rent out the other side. I think that's a fine idea. And then after a couple of years, do the same. Next thing you know, you got several doors. I like that idea. I think that's an okay way to get into the real estate game, right? The other thing I want to tell you guys is make sure that as a landlord that I like to buy properties in areas that I feel comfortable with, not areas that I'm going to be scared to go to or I don't know anything about or I'm nervous about this and that. Whenever I buy a piece of property, whenever I bought property in the past, I always get a feel for the neighborhood, the area, what's coming to the area, what's leaving the area. Is the area up and growing or is the area going down, right? Always, those are things you want to know about a piece of property, right? But you'll learn, guys, the landlord life, being a landlord, being a property owner is not that simple. It's not that easy. It's not for everyone. Everyone won't be good at it, right? I got to caution you about that because you're going to watch YouTube videos. You're going to see Instagram posts that tell you that it's simple, or they indicate that it's simple, that it's easy, right? It's not. It takes a strong backbone. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of organization. It takes a lot of putting processes in place, right? What is your tenant screening process? What is your criteria and qualifications for moving into your property? What is your process for collecting rents? What is your process for repairs and maintenance? What does your lease look like? How is your lease constructed? What do you have in your lease, right, that your state or your city requires, right? What is the eviction process, right? You're a business. How are you going to do your taxes? How are you going to run your business, right? Don't plan on being a landlord if you don't think about these things. And a lot of people, they become accidental landlords. And when you become an accidental landlord, you're one step away from being a slumlord. An accidental landlord is one step away from being a slumlord. We all know people who grandmother passed the house down to them and they let the house go down. They let the house get raggedy. They tore the house up. They put some tenants in there. They didn't care about their tenants. They put anybody in there and they tore the property up. We all know people like that because a lot of people are accidental landlords, right? So speaking of this being a business, guys, make sure you have a CPA, right, that has some experience with rental properties, right? You have to have a team when you do this thing. I may manage my own properties, but guess what? I have 2 plumbers that I've been dealing with for a lot of years. I have a couple of handy guys that do things that I can't do. I have a couple of furnace guys that know what to do. I have a roofer, right? I have a gutter guy, right? I have people that help me along the way, a CPA, right? I have somebody that can knock out some lawn care for me and do something with the bushes if I have to, all right? So you got to know all this. The other thing you want to know is location of your property, as I mentioned earlier. Make sure you understand. This is the landlord life. It's a lot to know. If you want to be good, it's a lot to know. Plan to take good care of your properties. We don't need any more slumlords out there. People that don't take care of their property, they own a bunch of them and don't take care of any of them. Or they don't know the neighborhood or care about the neighborhood. They just got properties in the neighborhood trying to extract money from the neighborhood without taking good care of what they actually have in the neighborhood, right? That's the type of landlord you don't want to be. Right? Things to think about. Things to think about. I've given you a ton of things to think about. In this chat, if you go back and watch this video, guys, you watch this on replay, please do yourself a favor and read through the chat. Because we got a lot of experienced landlords in the chat. Thank you guys for being there, answering questions. And you want to glean from everybody. You want to get information from all sides. That's why I said join the local landlord association, right? Let's see here. Appreciate it, Corey. Thank you so much for helping out, Corey, as well. I'm new to this and not a landlord yet. Tab, Nebraska. If you're new to this, feel free to reach out to me. And you got questions. I don't mind answering questions. At all. My contact information is throughout the description box. Yes, your CPA can help you. Your CPA can help you or hurt you, right? Remember, guys, I had an eBay business, and I had a CPA that didn't tell me and impress upon me the right things to do with my eBay business, and I ended up being audited by the IRS. So keep your records. That's the key you want to take away from that. Maintenance. Real quick, let me say this about maintenance, guys. I always keep at least 2 to 3 maintenance folks on tap at all time. And the reason I keep 2 to 3 maintenance folks on tap at all time is because when you have a really good maintenance person, now I say maintenance person because I typically don't hire out to big contractors. I don't necessarily need a big contractor coming in and doing the interior paint of my property. I like people with low overhead. Mint Mobile, low overhead. Sorry, that was a shameless plug. Check the description box. Low overhead. I like low overhead workers and people, right? So If I have a big time contractor coming to my property to paint my property, which I'm going to have next week painted, if I have them come in and paint the interior of my property, they're going to charge me $3, $4, $5, $6,000 to paint the interior. $3, $4, $5, $6,000. That's around the range, right? Small house, right? Maybe 1,200 square feet, 1,300 square feet. But I got a guy, right? I'm the guy that has a guy, and I've got a guy that's done tons of these interior paints for me. I've been working with him for a long time, 10 years or so. He does my interior paints. I ain't gonna pay $3,000. I guarantee you. I'm gonna pay about a third of that or less because he does my stuff. I know him. He knows me. He does great work. He know I'm reliable. He's reliable. We got a good working relationship. He's been around for a long time. I ain't got to pay somebody $5,000 to come in and paint the interior of the house. If you become a landlord, this is big bonus tip. Big bonus tip. Find people that do good work. It's the same thing about it. Like, okay, let me give you an example, guys. If you own a vehicle, a car or truck, right? You have a vehicle. You want to avoid taking your vehicle to the big old nice Firestone or whatever big old building that is down the street. You want to find you a good licensed and insured individual or two to put on the brakes, because and make sure they do good work. I'm not saying just find anybody. You got to find the right people who do great, excellent work. Now, when you find that person, you're going to have your brakes put on at the big box store for $400. But you're going to go to this person because we know brakes only cost $50, right? You're going to go to this person. They're going to charge you $250 or $200 to put those brakes on. Because when you have work done at properties or even on cars, you pay mostly for the labor. You don't pay mostly and the expertise, right? So when I have my interior painted next week on this property where my tenant owed 2 months of rent and she moved out to another state and still owed me the money, on this property, I'm going to have my guy come in and he's going to do interior painting with me, and he's going to do the interior painting for a fraction of the cost that it would cost if I went to a big old contractor. Now, when you first become a landlord, you may not have anybody like that. It may take you some time to work up to people like that, right? And so that's why, that's one tip that you got to think about. And here's the other tip. I think I mentioned it before, but I'll mention it again. When you have that person, tip that repair and maintenance person. Give them a tip. Please give them a tip. If interior paint costs you $5,000 for you got 2 or 3 bids on it, and each one of them said $4,000, $6,000, it costs you $5,000 to paint the whole interior of your house, but you got a guy who will go in there and do it for $1,000, then you need to make sure you give that dude an extra $100, extra $150. Tip him. He's already saving you a ton of money by agreeing to do it for much less than you'd pay somebody with a whole lot of more overhead. Same thing goes for your plumber, for your HVAC person, whoever does your heating and cooling, for your carpet guy. When you find good people who do work for a fraction of the cost that you would otherwise pay, be sure to help them out. They got to feed their family too. And they're charging you less money because they have less overhead. They don't have to pay for, big old, writing on the front of the van, or they don't have to pay for the uniforms for 10 workers or 30 workers, right? And so because you're saving money, return that favor and tip them. And trust me, when you start tipping your repair and maintenance people who do a good job for you, they're going to reciprocate. Because let me say this to you guys. Good maintenance people are usually busy. Good maintenance people are usually busy. And so guess what? If they're usually busy, but they get a phone call from you because you need some repairs done, and they know that you tip, they have a good working relationship with you, they can sometimes move you up in the line so that it won't be 2 weeks from now before I can get over there. It might be a week. It might be 3 days. But you gotta work on forming these relationships with maintenance people. It helps tremendously, and it will save you thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars over the years. That's a key tip for new people. Now, here's the kicker. Earlier, I said make sure you join the local landlord association. Well, guess what? It's at these local landlord association meetings where you learn about these type of maintenance people that don't charge what the big box people charge. Again, new information. Okay? Something that you want to make sure you add to your repertoire, right? I gave you a lot to think about on this video, guys, on this live, right? It's been an hour and a half for a reason. We went through a lot, right? Let's see here. North Carolina driving over to check a tax write-off on your house mileage. Yep. Corey said something very important. Very good, Corey. Thanks for bringing it up. You can, all of your mileage back and forth to your rental properties, it can become a write-off, right? Check with your CPA. Very important. But guys, listen, I'm going to drop off the live feed. We had an excellent discussion here. My tenant owed 2 months of rent, and this is what happened. This is what happened. She moved out on me, left, didn't pay it. So now we're at the point, guys, we got to go in. Got my cleaning guy right now, right there. We're going to do our interior paint next week. Then after we do our interior paint next week, we're going to go back and do a couple of more finishing repairs. And then we're going to clean it again. I like to clean a couple of times, at least a couple of times. And I like to exterminate. So I'm also going to get my exterminator in there as well before we do our last cleaning. I don't see any issues with exterminating, right? But I still like to do it anyway. Just to help out the next tenant and be on time. We're going to start advertising it and marketing it pretty soon as well, maybe this weekend, and get that rolling as well. Getting the ball rolling so we're back on here with a new tenant shortly. Again, it may sit for a while because we're at the point right now where it's tough to rent properties this time of the year. But that's okay. It happens, right? All right, let me see something here, guys. I'm about to, boom. All right, so if you're watching this on replay, and you rewind it back and watch this, basically this workshop on how to be a better landlord, right? If you're watching this stream, feel free to please drop a comment below. Please drop a comment, okay? Because I typically go through and I answer all the comments that I see, most of them that I can get to. I try to answer them. And if you have a specific question, please feel free to join this channel. We have chats, once a month if you join the channel at the advanced level, and you just schedule them whatever day and time is best for you that works for me on my schedule, and we have those chats. If you want to do a one-on-one, we can do that as well. If you're new to this thing and you really want to run by some numbers and share screens and do a Zoom call, that information's down below in the chat box as well. So I want to make sure you guys are set. You understand that real estate is an excellent place to invest your money. It's an appreciating asset. Remember, guys, you want to take cash that goes down in value because of inflation. You want to take that cash and you want to exchange it for appreciating assets that are going up in value. Depreciating asset cash, exchange it as much as possible for appreciating assets. Stocks, index funds, mutual funds, ETFs, real estate, right? Real estate. Real estate is an excellent way to build up your portfolio over the years, right? It's 45%, maybe a little more of my portfolio, of my overall net worth that has now reached into the 7 figures. It's at least 45% of that. Excellent. You ain't got to be fancy. In this thing of growing money, we talk about growing money all the time on this channel. You don't have to be fancy. You don't have to be fancy. I'll talk about the big 3 all the time. Real estate, stock market, owning a business. The big 3. Just do 2 of those 3 and you'll be just fine. You can grow wealth in America. I still believe that. And I think we have a lot of folks in this chat that still believe that. Right? So, hey, guys, cut it off. I appreciate you guys more than you know for helping this channel grow. Smash this like button. You know, guys, we're almost at the silver play button here on this channel. 100,000 subscribers gets us a silver play button. It wouldn't be that if it wasn't for you guys. So I really appreciate you guys chiming in. I really appreciate you guys helping out in the chat, answer questions about being a landlord. That's super duper helpful, right? Because we're in this thing on this YouTube channel to help each other. right? You guys give me new information, and hopefully I can help you guys and get you guys some new information on a regular basis as well too. And we talk about money. We talk about, sometimes we go into what's happening in the U.S. economy in terms of money. We talk about our personal finances, money management, how to grow money, how to invest money. And real estate is a great way to invest your money. Okay, I'm all for it. But I want you to get the realistic piece of it. I don't want you just to get the pie in the sky, right? So, hey, if you got questions, drop it in the comment. Check out the good stuff. I got some free stuff in the description box too. Share this link with somebody who you know is considering real estate, right? We all got that friend or that cousin who've been talking about getting in real estate for 10 years, and they've been talking about it for 15 years, but they never do it. Send them this link, guys. I appreciate you guys so much. I'll holler at you later. As I always say at the end of every live stream, the best person who's going to take care of the old you is the young you. Thank you so much. Take good care of yourself and take good care of other people. Until the next video, peace.